Here we go. All right, so welcome to May 19th. It's Tuesday, guys. We made it another week of distance everything. So with that, Katie is going to be our song leader this morning and singing Oh What a Beautiful Morning. So Katie, thank you. I appreciate it so much. So
Did we mute?
Would
You are very welcome. I'm making no promises, but I can at least get us started.
Okay, Katie, I'm going to really quick mute everybody, so unmute yourself after I do that, okay?
Okay.
Maybe I'm going to do that.
Or we can all mute ourselves.
Yeah, mute yourself, please, so we don't hear coughing and breakfast and that kind of stuff in the background. So, all right.
Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. I've got a one, two, everything's going my way. Oh, what a beautiful day. There.
Oh, Lord.
Thank you, Katie. That was very energetic and fun. So we're getting better at that, and hopefully we're all singing along at home. So because it is such a beautiful morning today in Oklahoma. So Virginia is going to lead us in the invocation.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for the many blessings you have given me and all of my fellow Rotarians. Thank you for giving us the ability to help others and remind us to continue to share our many blessings with those less fortunate. Please bless those who are sick or in need, or those who have lost loved ones. Please help all of those who have suffered or are suffering in any way as a result of the COVID-19 virus. Forgive us when we fail you. Help us to do your will. We praise you for your glory and mercy, and thank you for another beautiful day. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And Michael has the pledge and the four-way test this morning.
Can you all see the flag?
Yes.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do: is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendship? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, Michael. And so moving on to happy dollars. Do we have happy people this morning? Looks like we do. So, oh, okay. You can type your happy dollars in the chat room, or you can unmute yourself and chime in. So, anybody happy this morning? Maybe, maybe not. Well, I'm gonna.
I'm happy. I'm happy.
Okay, Katie's happy. What are
I'm
we
happy. I'm
about?
happy. So I got to go to. I play golf. I just started taking lessons summer, and so mostly I go out and dig holes in Westwood just for fun. But I got to go a couple of times this past week, and I saw Bill from our club, who's a marshal out there, and we got to chat. And then I went yesterday, and Jeff Bryant, I saw Warren Langford from our class and got to say hi to him. And then I met a gentleman. I just go out by myself and walk the course and hang out and mostly watch birds and listen to nature and occasionally hit a ball. But there was this older gentleman sitting by the clubhouse eating his lunch, and I made some funny comment like, "Oh, what a magnificent feast you're enjoying. Have a wonderful day." And we wound up talking, and he sort of invited himself along for 9 holes, which was fine. His name is John Ferguson, and he's an Oklahoma City broadcasting and acting legend. He knows Dick Pryor, and I'm sure many of you know him. He was a character named Count Gregor on, I think, Channel 4 for years and years.
Yes.
He's one heck of a golf player. So he gave me some tips and pointers, and we chatted, and I made a new friend. And it was just kind of this little karmic bubble of happiness in the midst of all this craziness. And it really, really made me happy. So my happy dollar is for John Ferguson, my new friend, and the corrections he made on my golf stroke. Thank you.
Wonderful. That's a fun story. And Zach Miller has a happy $5 as well. So
yeah, if I can say something.
yes, please.
Happy $5. I'm back, and happy $5. I launched my website.
Wonderful. For your Uncle Zach's
Uncle Z.
Uncle Z.
Yeah.
Okay. Uncle Z Spice Blend and Sauce, right? So good stuff there.
Thank you.
Yeah. So might be time to like message you and get another jar. So anyway, we're getting low at the Purcell household. I have a happy dollar because so as many of you know, we adopted JT Johnson and Lori's cat, Snowflake. Snowflake likes to go out on rambles. And well, she went on a ramble, and we thought we had lost JT's cat. Anyway, and I was like, oh, how do I tell JT and Lori, and worse, Anna Lee, that we've lost their cat? But anyway, she came home this morning, so that's my happy dollar, is I don't have to go look for another cat. So anyway, because they tend to wander off on me, apparently. So anyway, so that's my happy dollar. Other folks? Anybody? We're the only happy people this morning. Okay, so if we don't have any more happy dollars, we'll move on with, oh, well, this was last week. I didn't fix this. Okay, so never mind on that. Do we have any announcements? Are we having a happy hour this week, anybody?
Yes, I just sent out an email to the club.
Okay.
We'll have it Thursday at 5 o'clock.
Thursday at 5 o'clock?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a funny theme or anything this week, Connie? Or
Oh my gosh, it's just 7 o'clock. No.
happy hour? Happy hour is our theme. Okay. Isn't that enough, Jane? Anyway, thank you, Connie, for sending that out and organizing that. I appreciate it. And hopefully this week I'll remember it's Thursday. I do really good at the beginning of the week. It's the end of the week that I struggle with what day it is. So anyway, so I hope to see everybody there. It's a good time to chat in a small group. Any other announcements? Okay. So I had asked Polly, and I had stuck this in here as a reminder. Next week, Polly's going to lead us in celebrating our April and May birthdays. Since we kind of got off kilter there with our schedule, it dawned on me that we haven't had those birthday celebrations. So happy birthday to all of us who had birthdays in April and all of us who have birthdays in May. So, but we'll do a proper celebration next week.
Well, we will in a week. You're going to have to take it for granted that I have everybody's name in the pot as I draw out the names. So,
Polly, I trust you with everything.
I'll get the song recorded
Thank you.
okay,
for you, Polly.
great. That would be wonderful.
Thank you, Mary.
You might have to remind me.
Okay, will do. But thank you for doing that. So everybody be coming prepared to celebrate April and May birthdays.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So thank you, Polly. And so with that, I think we're getting to a place now where I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to Inger. And Inger, I'm going to slaughter your last name. Is it Guiffrida?
It's okay. It's Guiffrida.
Okay.
A little bit of a mouthful. I get it.
And I'm not sure. I'm going to turn it back over to Mary to introduce your foundation and everything. So anyway, so Mary, it's to you.
Well, we used to have Wildcare on about every other year, come to a program, and I don't think we've had them out since we moved our venue. So I've been supporting them for a long time, and they have very impressive bios. Inger just stepped on board, within this last year? Where'd you go?
I'm here.
You're somewhere on the screen. There you are.
I am here.
But I'd much rather let them just talk about their background a little bit. And Kristy is kind of their outreach PR, Kristy Wicker. But if you all haven't been out there when this whole thing is over, I hope you can make it to one of their open houses. And I hope you don't have to bring wild animals to them. But if you do, they have great staff. The first time I discovered them was on the way to a Rotary tour function, and there was a goose that someone had run over on Highway 9. And so Phil Linneman, I don't know if he coached me or I called them, but I got the duck or the goose and put it in the trunk in a blanket and hauled it off to Wildcare, and then went on. Oh, it's when we were going out to Saxon there on Highway 9 East. So I had that story to tell when I got to Rotary, and that was my first experience with them, and I was very impressed. So I hope you all will listen to what all the good things they do, and we're very pleased to have them with us this morning. So turn it over to Inger and Kristy.
Thank you very much. Yep, yeah, I think we have to do it. So Kristy and I are going to kind of bounce back and forth. We're on two different computers. And my name is Inger Guiffrida, as Jane said, and I came to Wildcare. Well, the first time I came to Wildcare was about 14 or 15 years ago with a bird and my small children, and have been supporting and known to Wildcare for a long, long time. It's an organization that I've long admired, and it's nothing but a privilege now to be a part of the team. Kristy, do you want to go ahead and introduce your...
So my name is Kristy Wicker. I'm going to take mine off.
Okay, we're gonna both be in the same frame. But we work together all the time, and we've already done the whole like isolating team. So this is safe even in COVID-19 because we have been working together. Okay, go ahead.
So my name is Kristy Wicker, and I started out at Wildcare about 10 years ago as a volunteer. And then I did just kind of volunteered for several years, and then started, got a couple animal care internships over spring and summer is our busy baby season. And so I did a couple animal care internships. And then just in the last 5 years, I kind of came back part-time and started kind of helping out with more of the outreach and education and answering phones and doing more administrative stuff. And so right now I do most of our public education programs, but I'm still out here a lot during the week too, kind of answering phones and responding to email messages, Facebook messages, which we'll talk about later, has become a really big part of what we do, much more than we've really, I think, appreciated as we've grown over the years.
And the other thing I just want to say about Kristy, and she's not going to say this about herself, but like sort of in the animal welfare field, she's extremely well known and kind of a rock star. She authored the first comprehensive report ever done in the United States on the state of animal welfare for Oklahoma. A report like this had never been done, and she did in-depth research on the whole system of domestic animals and shelters and their treatment, farm animals, wild animals, supported by the Kirkpatrick Foundation, and was actually sort of the platform for the Kirkpatrick Foundation first ever animal conference in 2016, I think was the first year. And so she's known nationally for her work in animal welfare as well as her research ability. So Wildcare is extraordinarily lucky to have her on staff. So if it's okay, we're going to try to share our screen because we have a little bit of a presentation, and then we're going to go into the mammal nursery and show you a couple of the babies that we have here with us right now. So hopefully this will work. And Jane, maybe you can tell me if it is or is not working. Is it working? Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna not move it. Well, I'm gonna try to move it to slideshow mode, which I have found to be a little bit tricky in this format. So can you all still see the screen?
Yes.
Oh, yay, it worked. Okay. So I'm going to actually just start with our mission. It's important, and I want to talk about our mission a little bit. It's to provide people a place to bring native wildlife struggling to survive with the goal of releasing healthy individuals back to nature. And the thing I really love about Wildcare's mission is that it focuses on people first. One of the things that I have really come to appreciate in the time that I have been here is how distressed people often are when they find the goose hit on Highway 9, or a turtle that's been attacked by a dog, or a pelican that's been brought down in their field in the middle of a storm, and they don't know what to do, but they want to help. And because Wildcare is here, they can help, and they have somewhere to bring that animal that is struggling to survive for any number of reasons. But then the thing that really differentiates Wildcare from a lot of other animal organizations is that we are laser focused on rehabilitating these animals so that they can be released back into the wild. And so we aren't a zoo, we aren't a sanctuary where we kind of keep animals and, you know, forever and ever. We focus on getting them the treatment they need, rehabilitating them, and then getting them back out into the wild. So unlike a lot of other places that have animals, you'll never see us like cuddling the animals and talking to them, even though that's really personally very hard for me not to do, because we want to make sure that they can go back out into the wild and survive. And being accustomed to humans is not going to help them survive, obviously, as wild animals. So some of our core values, and I know that, you know, Rotarians are very focused on their values, Wildcare is as well. The first thing is that every life matters. So whether someone brings us a bald eagle or a mouse baby, and we honestly get both, or a hummingbird or a squirrel, all animals are treated the same here and get the same level of care. We have a wildlife veterinarian, the second one in the organization's history to be on staff, as well as 6 animal care managers that provide, you know, the triage care and then the ongoing medical support, nutritional support, rehab support that the animals need. And so I've already said that we don't ever treat them like, you know, domestic animals, but that we do what is necessary to rehab them for survival in the wild. The other thing that is one of our core values is that our people are our most valuable assets. Without our people, obviously Wildcare would not work, and that includes our volunteers, of course, our financial supporters, our board of directors, but then of course our staff, which includes full-time, part-time, fellows and interns, as well as we have animal care volunteers. And then finally, we really believe that public education can reduce the likelihood of negative human-animal encounters. And so we really take that public education part really seriously, like with every single phone call we get almost. And that's a huge part of Kristy's job. Kristy, do you want to add anything to this?
Yeah, that's good.
So these are just some of our patients, and we have lots of these slides that we have taken care of. And every single picture that you're going to see in this slide presentation is of some of the patients that we either have right now or have had at Wildcare over the years. So I'm a big data person, and so you're going to see some data here shortly. But one of the things that also sort of sets us out from, or sets us apart from other organizations, that was we are licensed. We're licensed by the state as well as federally to handle animals, including eagles, which is a very special permit, and only 4 organizations in the state are allowed to do that, not including our zoos. And like right now, for example, we have an eagle here. Both of its wings were broken. And Dr. Abbott created this external splint that he has been gradually removing so that the eagle bones are healing, as well as he's developing strength in both of his wings. It's actually pretty amazing, to be quite honest. So Wildcare takes in on average 6,500 wild patients a year, and has actually, as of last summer, reached the 100,000th animal mark. This year, if we continue the rate we are in taking animals right now, we'll probably exceed 8,000 animals. That's not a goal, I promise. It's just where sort of our intakes are this year. And this is just like since 2008, you can kind of see the upward trend in the number of animals that we are intaking. And there are several reasons for this that you can probably guess. One is, as Wildcare has been around, more and more people know about us. So that's obviously one factor. But the other is, you know, as wild space is developed, there are more and more human-animal conflicts that come to our attention. So as I said, we're on track to exceed 8,000 this year. I talked about the eagle that's here, and the picture in the upper left-hand corner is a picture of Dr. Abbott actually doing physical therapy with this eagle while he's under anesthesia to strengthen his arms. And the picture that's kind of below it to the right is that eagle kind of coming out of anesthesia. We also, on the lower left-hand corner, have a picture of a baby badger, which I honestly didn't know badgers were native to Oklahoma. Kristy, how many badgers have we had in the organization's history?
Yeah, I think in like 35 years, we've had 5. He's our 5th badger. So at one point many years ago, we did get 2 baby badgers in that were siblings. But the few times we've gotten them in, typically they're just 1 at a time.
And they're as feisty as reputation, as their reputation. Let me just put it that way. So this picture is basically our daily intakes. And so you can see this is from January 1st until just a few days ago. As we start to hit spring, we get more and more animals in per day. And one of the things that's happened this year that is sort of unprecedented in Wildcare's history is the number of days where we have more than 50 animals coming through the door within a day. So for example, for all of last year, there were only 17 days where we had more than 50 animals come through the door. As of May 11th, we've already had 18 days where the intake has exceeded 50 animals, which puts a lot of pressure on obviously the staff and the infrastructure here, because again, this is sort of unprecedented in the organization's history. And because of this, that's why if nothing changes, we're looking at 8,000 animals this year. I mentioned the pelican. You can see the pelican in the upper right-hand corner, and he happens to be doing really, really well. One of the things we get a lot of are orphaned raccoons, or those that have been separated from their parents due to a whole bunch of reasons. And we've never had as many raccoons this early as we've had this year. In fact, our raccoon nursery is absolutely full. And they are absolutely precious, but they are very demanding babies. I will tell you, the room is always, always loud. Would you add anything else about any of these pictures, Kristy?
Yeah, I would just say that overall, I think our intakes are higher this year. You know, as more people hear about us, but I also think the coronavirus has hit us differently. We just didn't know what to expect. We didn't know if more people would be home and encountering animals, or if people would be less likely to travel and bring us animals. And I think what we found is that people are home and they're doing more yard work. They're cutting down trees and then finding babies. But also some of the other rehab centers around us. There are rehabbers across the state. Wildcare is the largest one in the state and the oldest. But there are several rehabbers across the state. Some of them are much smaller that do it out of their home. There are a couple that are a little bit bigger that have more like centers like we do. But many of the smaller ones have kind of closed their doors this season because of the risks with coronavirus, and either being at risk themselves or in their family. And so that's kind of, I think, adding an added pressure to Wildcare, because we're getting animals from, you know, we usually get them from all parts of the state, but it seems to be we're getting a lot more calls from people that are saying that they reached out to their local rehabber and they're closed and not taking animals. And so they're traveling greater distances to get animals to us.
And if you have questions, please just ask. Don't wait until we're done, because, you know, I mean, I know I like to ask a question when I have it. So Kristy already intimated that one of the things that really hasn't been focused on or sort of appreciated in Wildcare is the amount of work that we do on the phones. And that's something that we're actually going to be sort of really focusing on and are exploring, actually creating a wildlife hotline. There are a couple of models of this that we're looking at in other parts of the country, but this is just a snapshot of our incoming phone calls for the last month. And on average, we get about 120 calls a day. And so in the past, that has been managed by, if we have someone working up front, but as well as the animal care staff. This year, it's really been 100% Kristy, another one of our coworkers, Linda, and me working the phones to try to help the staff have the time to take care of all the extra animals we have this year. But one of the things that we have determined is that the phone really is our sort of front line of public education, and it's our opportunity to divert animals that really don't need to come into the center that in the past have come into the center. And so one of the things we're really trying to focus on over the phone is reunification and renesting whenever possible. And the reason for this is that it keeps the animals with their parents, obviously, and it's better for the animals, way less stressful. And it diverts them from coming into the center. So we really see this as an important and increasing sort of area of work within the organization. And so Kristy and I are going to share a couple of stories related to this. So I'm going to do the one on the left. 2 Fridays ago, I got a phone call from a family in Boswell, Oklahoma, which is somewhere east of Durant. And they had a longstanding eagle's nest that in a storm basically blew up in their tree. There was a dead baby bald eagle on the ground and one that was still living. And the parents were circling around, but the nest was completely destroyed. By the time I got to the center that day, that baby eagle was on its way to our center, and I intercepted them and turned them around once I heard the circumstances. And after spending about 2.5 hours on the call that day, involving 2 power companies, the fire department, the mayor of Boswell, the game warden, and a rope and rescue team, this baby was reunited with its parents in a makeshift nest. And this is a picture 5 days after the fact of that adult eagle taking care of its baby. And so this is obviously much better for the eagle. It will learn how to hunt. It will stay in its wild environment. It doesn't have the stress that's associated with capture. But it did take 2.5 hours of time to like do all of that coordinating from here, because often we don't have like our own eyes on the ground, and we're having to make all of these phone calls based on reports and photographs and what have you. So that's just one example. Kristy, do you want to share this other?
Yeah, the other one was a situation from eastern Oklahoma. It's baby owl season right now. So owls usually lay their eggs earlier in the season, but now the babies are getting bigger. Sometimes they're getting blown out of the trees, sometimes sledging, and people are finding them on the ground because they haven't figured out how to fly yet. But as I said, a lot of times people are doing yard work because we're home. And so this was a family in eastern Oklahoma that had cut down a dead tree that was up near the house. And when they cut down the tree, they found out that there were barred owls, babies that there had been a nest in the tree. And he reached out to the game warden, and the game warden told him to box them up and send them to us. So he actually called us telling us that he was going to head this way. But Dr. Abbott and I have, and others have been working hard to try to work on this reunification process. And so we kind of talked to him about, would they be willing? Barred owls are cavity nesters, so it's not just putting up a box or a basket, which we can do with some birds. They like to go into something. And so we started searching the internet, found pictures of barred owl nest boxes, and started sending them pictures of that, how big the hole needed to be. You know, these guys were close to fledging. They weren't tiny babies. And so, you know, the guy said, you know, luckily the family said yes, they'd be more than happy to work on that. So they kind of constructed a box in a matter of probably an hour. And then we talked about how it needed to have a branch so that when the baby stepped out of the nest box, they actually had something to perch on. Otherwise, they were just going to end up on the ground again. And so this family, like in a matter of under 2 hours, had gone from having these babies in a cardboard box to creating a nest box. And it was very close to the original tree. And so again, the parents got to continue caring for the babies. You know, I think that a lot of times we think that animals abandon their babies a lot. That, you know, we'll get that call a lot that, oh, they just abandon their babies, or they're not going to touch the babies after we've touched them. And all of that's a myth. While animals have very strong maternal instincts, parental instincts, just like we do. And so I've been just astounded over the years about, you know, they don't care if it's an artificial nest. They don't care if it's a wicker basket or if it's a box that we constructed. They're very motivated to take care of their babies. And I think that we can use that to kind of keep wildlife together.
We have a question from the chat box for you guys. First question was about, like, do you guys have any idea of what the cause of so many eagle injuries are, whether it's like from windmills or cars, or is there a leading cause of injury to eagles? And the other one is, do you vaccinate the animals for rabies before releasing them back to the wild?
Those are really, really good questions. So the first one, when it comes to eagles particularly, and I'm assuming you mean bald eagles in particular, it really varies. I would say, like, the number one issue is going to be habitat loss. And so they're closer to humans than they normally would be, which leads to them being hit by cars, their nests accidentally getting cut down because someone doesn't know it. So there's no, like, sort of one thing. We don't really get that many windmill injuries right now. And I think it's because there aren't people walking around the bottom of windmills except for maybe the workers. And so I think that, you know, if we get to the point where we have volunteers that can go scope out the bottom of windmills, I have a feeling we'd find a lot of, like, maimed or hurt animals. But and during particular times of the year, not always, obviously, but that's not really, hasn't been, at least as of yet, a big issue. The biggest issues are cats, dogs, and yard work. If we could get everyone not to, like, cut down trees or do any, like, trimming from, like, March to June, that would be really ideal for wildlife, honestly. And then vaccinations, they vary for the different species, what we vaccinate or who we vaccinate for what. And so
vaccinate raccoons against distemper, just because it's very prominent in their population. Typically,
we don't do rabies. The population that's most likely to have rabies in Oklahoma is our raccoons and our bats, but our staff that handle those animals, the adult animals, the adult versions of their animals are rabies vaccinated. Oh, and skunks. I meant to say skunks. Sorry, skunks and not raccoons. Sorry, raccoons. Sorry, raccoons.
And, you know, back to the eagle question, you know, last year we got another eagle in that was just found kind of flopping around in a farm pond, and we never really understood what was wrong with him. There was no, as I recall, he didn't have any breaks, but neurologically, he was having some problems, and we suspected like inadvertent poisoning. We see that in a lot of raptors when people put out rat poisoning for gophers and moles and all the kinds of things that, you know, we don't want around our yards and in our houses. A lot of times other animals eat those animals and then become inadvertently poisoned themselves. And so sometimes we'll see that in adult raptors as kind of neurological symptoms where they're just not functioning at a high level, and we don't necessarily see anything physically wrong except just the neurological issues.
Did we answer both questions? I don't remember.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Great, and excellent questions, by the way. I think we've already.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Without giving it much thought, what would be your most memorable rescue? You know, just something that pops in your head that's just out of the ordinary, or?
You know, my favorite things are when we get to reunite. I think one of my most memorable things was reuniting baby great horns. This was a couple of years ago with their parents, and the nest had been blown down. This was in Edmond, and I think we got 2 little baby great horned owls in, and there was still one up in the nest, but he was barely hanging on. Great horned owls aren't great nest builders, so if high winds come through, Sometimes, you know, babies fall out. And I had heard about re-nesting before, but I had never been part of it. And we kind of put a team together, and we got an old wicker basket, put the babies in the basket, or secured it in the tree and put the babies back in the basket. And within like less than 30 minutes, the mom was sitting on that nest, taking care of her babies. And I think that really struck me as how possible this was, and how important that part of what we do is. There's always interesting animals that come through Wildcare. You know, the bald eagles are great, the badger. This is my first experience getting a baby badger. But one of my favorite things is just seeing all the animals that are part of, you know, live in Oklahoma that we wouldn't even get to see or know they're here unless through the work that we do. So that's kind of my favorite part. We also, you know, we have rescued baby ducks out of a swimming pool one time. Those aren't, they're, you know, they're not really, it's not a big dramatic rescue, but it's kind of, you know, it makes you feel good when you can pull a duckling out of a pool and send it off and it runs off with its mom. Those kind of things are fun and rewarding.
And a follow-up question about the eagle with the neurological issues. How do you treat that?
You know, the vet has like a system where we, and I can't get too much into the vet care, but he has a system. If we suspect poisoning, there's a whole protocol that they go through to kind of flush the system. And, you know, I don't know if there's what exactly the details of it are, but he has a whole protocol. And sometimes even if we don't know that that's the case, but we suspect it is, we'll start doing that just in case.
And then another question from the chat box was most unusual animal that you've maybe treated that is not native to Oklahoma.
Well, we don't really treat non-native species, although I mean, from time to time, you know, it's happened that we've gotten them. And then honestly, like sometimes it's hard to like even differentiate. So for example, we'll get pigeons in, and they aren't really wild animals, but they aren't really, you know, you can't really take them to the Norman Animal Shelter either. And so often we end up taking those in. We don't want to advertise that, of course, but in terms of unusual, I mean, you know, people brought parrots to us. We've rehomed them. People brought donkeys to us. We've rehomed them. Again, that's nothing we really want to advertise because we've got our hands full with the wild animals. But no one brings us like exotics that people might have as pets, like, you know, tigers, for example. I know that's on everyone's mind in Oklahoma, given, you know, thanks Netflix, but you know, nothing like that comes to us. And we do get calls like that, and we just have to tell people you'll have to find your own private vet.
One time years ago, we got some kind of weird crane in, and this was before I was here, but Rhonda used to tell the story, and it was actually a bird that had been at Oklahoma City Zoo that got out. And so, but it was like an Asian crane, not anything we had seen before, but luckily we found where he belonged.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are great questions. So I've already talked about like the people of Wildcare. One of the things that really sort of changed how Wildcare could worked was up until 2015, all of the care was provided out of the director's house. So she and her husband, O.T. Sanders, and then Dr. Harrington, who's a vet in Norman, started Wildcare, you know, first kind of as a thing they wanted to do in their spare time, and then it grew, and eventually it grew to the point where they could no longer do it out of their garage and porch. And so in 2015, the Golden Family Wildlife Rehabilitation and Education Center was built, and we're coming up on the 5th anniversary of that. But that really expanded Wildcare's capacity to not only handle the volume of animals, but also the different levels of treatment. I mean, now we have a clinic with, you know, proper machinery and space to take care of animals. We have a place to put patients that need isolation because of suspected disease or what have you. And so again, it's just really changed the ability to do this work. And this picture is really sad, but it shows some of the stuff that's been like some of the injuries that some of our animals or patients have sustained, and also some of the things that like really mess them up. Like, for example, this pelican, this is a fishing lure that was pulled out of it. That's a piece of barbed wire that was pulled out of an animal. We just lost a loon, a migrating loon, because it was completely tangled up in fishing line and had ingested some of it. And despite Dr. Abbott's efforts, could not save this, you know, beautiful, extremely rare in Oklahoma bird. It was migrating through. So, so some of the things that we just yesterday, 2 days ago, we had to, you know, unfortunately could not save a squirrel that had been shot. You know, I mean, like all kinds of things come to us that are very, very heartbreaking, to be honest with you. Do you have anything more you would want to say?
No, the little coyote at the bottom, you know, so we have injury. This is kind of just a slide to show some of the injuries, but also the illness. So sometimes we'll get animals in that have mange or, you know, other illnesses that some we can treat, some we can't. Distemper is a common thing that comes in, raccoons come in with. It's not treatable, but it's something that we certainly don't want animals to suffer with in the wild. And so that is kind of a sadder part of what we do, but we also try to make sure that people understand that they did do that animal a great service, you know, that the animal's not suffering in the wild either, so.
Or continuing to spread the disease. I mean,
Yes.
Both of those things are positives. And so one of the things, and this is something, I mean, if there was, well, there were one of many things that I could change, we do rely on the public to bring us the injured, orphaned, or sick wildlife for care. But often people who find animals, you know, don't have the transportation, the time off from their jobs, the means to get to us, particularly if they're calling us from Boswell, Oklahoma, or wherever. We do have some volunteers that will go out. Like yesterday, one of our incredible volunteers went to Yukon to pick up both a dog ravaged turtle and we think, well, we're calling it orphaned, great horned owl. And the rescuers in that case did spend a while trying to find the nest, but couldn't. So that's a big part of what makes Wildcare work. I do wish we had greater capacity to help with some of the rescues that people just can't undertake for different reasons in the, you know, in the field. This is a rescue kit. This is a picture of a rescue kit that we encourage people to keep in their car if they want to save wildlife, and there are lots of different ways of doing that. And we've already talked about the fact that our goal is really about rehabilitation. So do we want to maybe, how about if I wrap up any questions, if you want to move into the nursery and get suited up to handle a baby, and then I'm going to follow. So Kristy's going to go get a couple of our babies out, but has to go get gloves and stuff on to do that. I just want to see if anyone has any other questions before we go into the nursery. We're going into the mammal nursery, by the way.
Ingrid, this is Joan Barker, and I just wanted to say I met you last week. You were walking through the Hall Park green space looking for the owl. A neighbor had found baby owls, and you were trying to locate the nest and the parents, and thank you so much.
And those were successfully reunited, by the way.
They were.
So yeah, they were. One of our volunteers is a tree climber. Well, he's actually a rock climber, but he can also climb trees. It's not.
He got pretty high up there with that basket.
Yep, he shimmied up that tree and got those two baby great horns reunited. Yeah, and all the neighbors of Hall Park were fantastic in helping us with that. So,
well, thank you.
You bet. Any other questions before I move us?
I have one. I'm sorry. What about if you have an animal that's hurt but can't ever go back in the wild? I mean, we rehabilitate them as much as possible, but they still can't go back in the wild. What do you do?
So based on our licensing and based on sort of our mission, those animals are humanely euthanized, and it's the saddest part of our job. And it is always the last resort. But if we didn't do that, we would have a zoo. And that would interfere with our ability to do the rehabilitation work that we are really designed to do. So I'm glad you asked that question. It breaks my heart when we have to do it, but it's just the reality of this work.
Inger, we have a question. One of our members lives in Northwest Norman, and they've recently seen a mother possum and with a baby, and they want to know, how do they move them?
Oh, so this is a really good question, because we have hundreds of baby possums here right now. So when they're really little, I'll bring the computer in there. When they're really little, they're moved around in the mom's pouch. And then when they're a little bit bigger, they're moved in the pouch and on her back. Mother possums can have up to 13 babies, and they're nomadic. And so that doesn't mean they always move around, but they're unlike a rabbit that has a defined nest, they do move around. And sometimes those babies fall off mom's back, or she's threatened by a dog and she runs. Those babies that get left behind are considered by us orphaned, because mother possums, unlike raccoons or squirrels or most of the birds, will not come back for the baby. So that's why we end up with so many possums, because when you find a small possum by itself, generally it's fallen off mom's back and is now orphaned. So.
Awesome. Well, I think maybe part of my question got cut off, but it was more about, like, there's the baby is with its mother, and our member wants to know how to move them away from the house. Is that correct, David?
Actually, Jane, she's got it right. We saw the mother possum a few days ago acting very sick, but then we knew it was pregnant. But then we saw one possum run in our backyard by itself. So I think it's what you were talking about, Inger, that it did get separated. Mm-hmm. We know they're somewhere in the neighborhood. We don't know where.
Yeah.
But anyway, that answers the question. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Okay, so speaking of possums, I think Kristy is going to get one of our baby possums out to show you. Like I said, we have hundreds here right now.
So this is one of our most common animals. Okay. He's a little possum that came in by himself. We also have a lot of groups of possums. And so if they come in together, we try to keep them together. But after a certain age, when they come in about this size, we usually keep them separate, because when they're about 7 inches long from the nose to the base of the tail, so not including the tail, they're kind of weaning and they're out on their own. And so these guys when they're this size, are getting ready to be on their own anyway. So we don't want to put them in with a bunch of possums that they haven't grown up with to cause additional stress. But if they do come in, like yesterday, we got 9 baby possums in at one time. So we will definitely keep them together. Here we go. Okay. So yeah, this is just one of our single guys. He's not very happy with me right now, but no. We also have bigger groups. There's a little squirrel in here.
She's going to get a squirrel that's in the incubator out right now. One of the things that people think is that possums have disease and that they're scary, but they're in fact one of the most beneficial wildlife neighbors that we have. They can eat 1,000 ticks a day. So when people say they want to get a possum off their yard, I'm like, well, do you want ticks or no? And so often when I explain to them that they usually don't have any disease, they're not going to attack, and they're super beneficial, people are pretty happy to have them.
So we also get a lot of baby squirrels in. Most of our baby squirrels, we're kind of at the end of baby squirrel season, but there's always some late ones. So as soon as I say baby squirrel season's over, then that's a sure sign that we're going to get more baby squirrels. So these 2 are just recent admissions. Our earlier ones came in like February, and some of them have already been moved outside. They're weaned. That's part of our process when they're in the nursery like this. They're kind of still on milk, and they're getting daily care. And then as they get older and they're weaned, we move them outside.
Then none of them want to be on camera this morning. I don't know what just happened. Oh my gosh. I think I just lost the.
While she's getting another animal, like squirrels or the possums mature, then do you have a spot that you release them, or do you just randomly go around and release them, or what?
So we have lots of different spots where we release the animals. We have a whole landowner program and have relationships with people all over the state, as well as public lands where we can release animals. Like, some landowners will be like, want possums because of the, the beneficial tick eating, but we don't want squirrels. Or I'll take bobcats, but I won't take, skunks, whatever the case may be. And so Linda, our volunteer coordinator, has actually just taken over our landowner program and is working on. Oh, where are they?
They're in these. Can we see them?
Yeah. We're trying to get the baby skunks out. I have to say they might be the cutest baby of them all. I'm going to try to show you this one. Ready? There we go.
Oh. It's interesting because their skin has the markings that their fur will eventually grow into.
And then we have some fuzzy guys too that are, learning how to spray. That's one of the risks of the job. But our staff that handle the skunks have to be rabies vaccinated, because that is, they and bats are the two that are riskiest in Oklahoma. Are there any other, our staff is actually here to start feeding. We start feeding promptly at 8, and that doesn't stop until about 10 p.m. In terms of the feeding of the animals in the center. Do we have any other questions for Kristy or me?
Any last minute questions, guys? Because we have a lot of thank yous and great programs, and so this is really interesting, Inger. So we're thrilled to, for those of us who haven't seen your presentation, this is a really great opportunity to learn more about your work. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you for the invitation. It was lovely. We really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, it's great to know that we have this resource so close to Norman, and that people are taking care of the wildlife that, is beneficial to us as well. So with eating ticks and other things, and just, magnificent to look at. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, and I think that's it, because I don't see any other questions so popping up. Anybody else? Going once, going twice. All right. Well, thank you again for getting up early this morning to join us. We appreciate it. And hopefully we'll maybe we can come see you in person sometime. So when we can do that again. So Michael, I'm going to let you ring the bell to end the meeting. So thank you. Thank you. And Rotarians, go out and connect with the people that you can connect with, and do your part to make your corner of the world a better place. Have a great week, guys.
Have a great week.
Thanks.
Thank you. Spectacular presentation.